So we are here. We are live. Yay! This is applause in sign language in case nobody knew. So not that we need to be quiet about anything. So we're just waiting on some people to get in here. It's so good to see y'all though. Hey, hey.
Hello.
I'm loving this. We good. How you doing?
I'm all right, girl.
I'm so glad. I love when it's like the whole U of M squad like that. That's pretty dope.
Our blue is banging. We don't have to claim no territory. We own territory.
Just own it. I love it. We have one viewer. I can't even see who's viewing and who's not, so we're just gonna let it be what it is. But we got some people joining in, so say hi, guys. Like, come on in here and say hi if you're viewing tonight. We'd love to see your comments in the chat. We have a couple of people who will be kind of taking that management process on. Y'all know it ain't gonna be me, right? Because I don't have capacity, but we have somebody who's going to be chiming in and managing that. So say hi if you're here. I can see that there are 3 people, but it doesn't show me who. So just say hey, so we know that you're there. Do that. We're gonna start here in a second. Shanta, how was your day today?
Está bien. It was a good day. It was relatively smooth.
Okay, good. And you said y'all have these storms down there in Georgia.
This weather is coming through. Like, it's been beautiful all day, like nice and bright and sunny. Now I hear, God's up there bowling. He's having a good time.
Why I gotta be bowling though?
I've heard that analogy. I heard the bowling analogy with thunder too.
Right.
Would you want me to quote the good books and it's roll of thunder, hear my cry?
I mean, come on, scriptures.
I like the scripture.
Come on, scripture.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. If you're out there, guys, say hi. I don't know if anybody's seeing anything come through. I don't see anything coming through, but I don't know that
not yet.
Okay. All right. Say hey, guys, if you're there. I see that there are 3 people looking. Maybe one of them's me. I've got my computer open over here. You're gonna see. It could just be that. But we're going to go ahead and get started. There's only a few people. I know people are going to trickle in like they always do. So I'm super excited because it's Narrative Shifts, guys. It's your girl Rajette Speaks with Narrative Shifts. And this is where we reframe and redefine the narratives that go out about us. And so tonight, we have an incredible show. Just before I introduce our wonderful guests, I am going to just do a quick recap. So I don't know how many of you guys were keeping up. I know we have some new viewers, so thank you for being part of the show. First, I want to say that I know there are several of you who are tuned in or tuning in, trickling in. We've got the numbers climbing right now, so thank you for being a part of Narrative Shifts tonight. It's a new season. I almost broke out singing. Listen, it's a new season. It's season 2, episode 1. For some of you, this is the very first time that you've seen me and you're like, what's this? What, is 2 seasons already? Last year, even, I began this, and I believe it was November. I think the first season kicked off. The whole point was to start Narrative Shifts as a point of reference so that we can encourage our own selves, right, and be an example to others outside of our community. Sometimes some of the work that we do and some of the strides that we've made doesn't get to be translated in our own community because we just maybe haven't had the access or we just haven't had the exposure. And so this is that platform so that we can continue to build each other up, show each other, hey, this is where we are. We've been out here. We've been here. We've been doing great things. And so that's what Narrative Shifts is about. So thank you guys for, again, joining us tonight. Last season, we did several episodes. We did a full season, about 12 or 13 episodes. Where we kicked off the first 5 with Black men and mental health, which was a tremendous series that we did. It was amazing. So really excited about that. That was sort of the beginnings of Narrative Shifts. And so it's been beautiful to see how God has been bringing this just to fruition throughout the entire thing. We had a Black animator from Hollywood in here. We had a poet who does a lot of his writing, in terms of mental health. We had a social worker, law enforcement professional, who we talked about the intersectionality of Black lives, blue lives, and the community. So we were talking about community policing. We've just had rich shows, a photographer, an artist, who was working with a huge photographer that's international that was shooting for Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. So we've just had some really, really good opportunities to connect with people. And so I'm done talking about all of the last season stuff. We are jumping right in tonight with an incredible show. So I want to introduce to you guys Deodge Hill. Yay. And Shanta Hayes. Yay. So Shanta, if you've been keeping up over the last season, she's a familiar face. She's a friend to the show. She is our counselor that shows up, so any questions that you might have or any comments, sometimes I'll jump in and kind of say, hey, Shanta, what do you think about this? And she speaks to those issues. So she's here for that reason. She's also going to be answering anything, that might be related to that subject matter in the chat as well. We might get into some heavy, deep kind of stuff. Maybe it's triggering for some of you. And Shanta's here. So she'll be able to kind of, help with that process. So thank you, Shanta, for being available. And without further ado, we have Deodge Hill, physician's assistant, basically all around amazing individual and inspiration walking, who is a founder of 2 nonprofits, and we're going to get into that. She has a family practice. She's an author. Has got a couple of journals. Is a single mother. Is a widow. Just all of the things, and still out here like rocking life out, y'all. And that's the beauty of it. Totally on fire for God. Excited about her future and just our current. And so, Deodge, welcome to the show. Shanta, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
You are welcome. All right, so we're gonna get started. We got Val Miller in here. Thank you for joining, Val. So we're just gonna jump right in. I've got just right off rip. Can you tell me a little bit about where you grew up and how you became a physician's assistant?
Wow. Okay. So I grew up in Inkster. I also grew up in a single parent home. It's kind of a lot goes into that, right? Which kind of gets me to where I am today. My mom suffered from mental health. Dad suffered from some mental health issues. So that stuff kind of started early for me. So yes, single parent home. My outlet was always to engage in things that I could control. So things that I could control would be my grades and things being involved in school activities. And that turned out to be a positive thing because what ended up happening is that I did really well in school. So of course ended up at Michigan, through the struggles of being a single parent home and stuff. But it was because I was totally involved in stuff. And it was not because I was just this great person. I just hated being at home. It wasn't a great place to be. So I engaged in things that were in my control. The things at home were not in my control. So that's kind of how I landed at Michigan. My goals at Michigan initially were to become a physical therapist. That was my goal. And my dream was to do physical therapy. Had a summer program with Upward Bound, and they had illustrated jobs. And I think that's what kind of stimulated me to kind of even like medicine in the first place. And that's where my goal was when I got to Michigan. That's why I was in kinesiology. I was initially going to go into that. I did get pregnant my freshman year at Michigan. So the gear shifted. I don't know. Things are frozen here. Are we here?
Yeah, we got a little technical difficulty. We can hear you though. Go ahead. It'll hopefully resolve.
So pretty much that is what happened at my at Michigan. And then during the times of like once I had my son, it was just the gears shifted again. The gear at that point wasn't physical therapy because it was so difficult to get into the program at that stage of the game. Can you still hear me? I'm just making sure.
We can still hear you. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It just looks like the Wi-Fi might be being weird. Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. So then at that stage of the game, what ended up happening is I ended up changing my career path. I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do. But in the process, realized that I still wanted to kind of do medicine, but I had like one of those sociology classes that you have where you got to figure out, I don't know, it was like a 2-credit-hour class. They had different careers that would come in. And a physician assistant actually came in on that night. And that's where I stimulated to want to be a PA. I was like, that's me. It's not a doctor. It's not a nurse. It's right where I needed it to be. I could do some type of I could do some type of diagnosing and I can work under the physician, but I can still kind of have a little bit of leeway to do my own thing. And that's where my physician assistant interest started. So it was after I graduated that I started to pursue.
Oh, we lost her. Uh-oh. Okay, so she'll come back in, guys. I'm not sure. We had some Wi-Fi issues. It was showing that it was a low signal on my end from her end. So she will jump back in. I'm going to text her. In the meantime, y'all stay. Don't go anywhere because we're here. We are here.
We right here.
We're not going anywhere. Okay, I'm going to text her, guys.
Awesome.
Jump back in if you can. It looks like we might have lost Marcos as well. I'm not sure what's going on.
So are you guys having storms as well?
I'm sorry. Say it again.
I said, are you guys having storms as well?
Today was great, but the last couple of days were kind of not. Today was great, though. It was a beautiful day out. Tanisha, hey, thank you. Let's go. I'm so glad she's on YouTube. So we have Marcos coming back in here. We had a quick glitch with the internet situation. I'm not sure what's going on. Do you see that on your end, Shanta?
I see you're pixelated a bit.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not sure what's happening here because it's showing me that I have full Wi-Fi.
But again, I am in a stormy place right now.
This is true too. This is true. Okay. Deodge is coming back in, guys. Stand by. So again, we're not going anywhere. Thank you, Robin. It's real. It's real. Black Girl Magic is real. Thank you. Likewise. So she's coming on back in. We had, for those who are just joining us, we had a quick technical difficulty with Wi-Fi kind of just pausing out. Shanta is in the midst of some storms down there, literally. Shanta's in Georgia, and my signal says we're strong, but within the app, it's kind of saying we're not. So, we're going to get through it because these things happen and we just adjust, right? That's what we do. So just hang on. She's coming back in the meantime. So what you guys have missed, for anybody who just joined us, Deodge just kind of walked us through how where she grew up in Inkster, Michigan, and just kind of what that trajectory looked like for her going to the University of Michigan and being a single parent at that time. Here she is, and we're back. Okay.
I had to redo it, so sorry about that.
You're fine. You're good. Okay. You are great. So we've got a couple more people in here. Robin's in here. Tanisha's watching on YouTube. Love it. Val is still here. We asked everyone not to go away, so I don't think they did. We've got a nice little group here.
Devil busy. He not welcome here. Whatever. We got have alternate ways to get this done.
That's exactly right. No worries. No worries at all. Thank you, Marcos, for joining us back again. It also kicked him out as well. I'm not sure what's going on there, but we're gonna keep it pushing. This is what we do. We make adjustments and we just keep it going. So Deodge, you left off talking about just being the single parent, knowing that you were going to really pursue physician's assistant work because that was something that resonated with you so well. You were saying something and you dropped off. Do you remember what that was?
Yep.
If not, okay, go for it.
Yep. So pretty much I said that in the process of changing and shifting gears, I pretty much decided that physical therapy was not going to be an option, and the real reason for physical therapy not being an option, and it's really funny how you have advisors and things like that. I had an advisor that I had Donovan, that's my oldest son, and he was like, you'll never get into PT school with a baby and your grades or whatever, however he worded it, right? So transparency, I mean, I wasn't an all A student, but A, B student, whatever. Student at Michigan, BC, right? So, but the issue was, I got really discouraged after that meeting. But because what I was actually going to the meeting for is because I needed to take two class, like I want to say anatomy and something, but you have to get the override from your advisor, the two classes, and I went in there, really confident, feeling good. I'm a single mother. I'm trying. This person's gonna have some sympathy. That man was so mean to me. Oh my goodness. And he was like, I'm going to sign it, but I don't think that you're going to do well in these classes together. You'll never get into a PT school with these grades. So that was one of the discouraging things, right? Because PT school at that point, they was only accepting about 40 kids and very competitive. So it kind of crushed me. But in the meantime, to get into PT school, you also had to volunteer. So I did volunteer at Michigan, the University of Michigan Hospital, in their PT department to see if I liked it, and I didn't.
Okay.
That I actually had to pursue. I didn't like it. So it was like all of that in combination kind of led to, well, let me figure out something. I want to do medicine. And I just happened to have that class. And you know what? Lo and behold, I saw a PA talking. And when he was speaking, I said, that's what I want to do. That's me. And that's kind of where a long road of how I got led to where I am today.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. It speaks to the fact that sometimes we may, at least in our mind, think like, okay, this is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. And, God has different plans for us all of the time. It's like we may think it's one direction and that thing might change real quick, and so I love that you shared that, with such transparency. That's great. Thank you for that. You mentioned, so I'm going to dig a little bit, you mentioned that I wrote this down. Hold on. That you had the outlet, you knew that there was an outlet for things that you could not control, something to that degree. And I'm curious to know at such a young age how you knew that. Because a lot of times, at least in my experience and just, talking to some people, when they do have a home that does have so many challenges in it, yes, they may decide to escape to other things or hide or whatever the case may be, whatever verb you want to put there, they'll tend to do that. And sometimes it's not the most healthy way. And so what I'm hearing you say is that you chose school. You said, okay, no, I don't want to be at the house. And I'm curious to know why school was the pull and maybe not something else, because you were raised in Inkster, and anybody who doesn't know Inkster is, you'll talk about, I don't want to talk about it and put Inkster out there like that. That's your town. I can talk about Romulus. I can talk about Inkster, but you're from Inkster, so go for it.
Inkster is it's a rough little city. It was a lot of murders and different things and drugs and stuff, and it was really bad in Inkster.
Mm-hmm.
And the unfortunate part is, besides friends and family and different things that went on there, I needed a safe place, and the safe place was school. So that's kind of where it ended up. It was my safe net. Even it was just a lot going on. As far as family life and personal things, from the drugs and the alcohol and just different things you had to deal with in the home environment. And in my mind, watching family, instead of thinking that was cool, the only thing I could think is I got to get away from that. I got to be able to make sure that if I have kids, they don't have to ever have to deal with that. The one thing that would probably guide me was just that I like the positive feedback from school, right? Oh, you got all A's, that's, oh my God, you get a reward for that. And oh my God, my teachers are very understanding. So when I did have issues, they were very understanding because I was positive. The positive energy came from school. So that's kind of late. And I'm talking hindsight 2020, because going through it, I couldn't tell you that, oh, I did this because I think I'm getting, I think school is giving me that. I just now look back and see, oh, that's where my outlet is, which kind of spills over into my adult life, right? So with challenges that I deal with, it's like kind of my defense mechanism is to, how can I get my positive energy out of this thing, right? So that's been how I've coped with it. How do I not lose my mind? How do I not just, break down? Because how can I have to look at the positive thing, and of course it was initially just like God. And even in general, when I go back to religion and different things like that, I grew up a Jehovah's Witness. I was not Christian. I was really young, right? So it was a process of, oh, my friends are going to church, and there's another safety net. These are friends that go to church. I'm going to see them. And that's kind of how things started expanding. And it was a little bit different. So that also gave me positive feedback, right?
Wow. Okay.
It was always a matter of shifting into something positive, because I need something to deal with this negative energy that I got going on.
Got you. Thank you for that. Were you raised an only child? I'm hearing you say just you, but did you have siblings in the house with you?
I have an older sister. Yep. I have an older sister who, she spent majority of my high school, junior high school years with me. Yep.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. All right. So let's just go in order here. So you get through the University of Michigan. You have this wacky professor that tells you that you basically aren't going to make it. Don't you love when they tell us that though? Because, Robin, what did you say? I'm sorry, it cut out.
I said, it makes you work harder.
Absolutely. Yeah. Robin said Black girl magic is real. I believe in that, and it's not just Black girls, when they tell us we can't do anything. I know I used to have a sign on my door in high school that said, accept your limitations and then move beyond them. And that was something for me that every single day in high school, that was my affirmation. Like, I got this, like I got this. So, let's go in order. So we get through the University of Michigan. You met someone really special during the University of Michigan. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
So at Michigan, during I want to say it had to be like my sophomore, junior year. I met, that's when I met Patrick. That was my college sweetheart, but we actually started off as really just friends. And because I had a little boy, Donovan, I think was 2 at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I was really, really focused on school, and we had a couple of classes together, and our interaction was more dealing with classes. He needed a book. I had a book. That kind of it really just started off that way. And then I really liked him, but we stayed really like true friends for like a year before we actually decided to date. Because I didn't want to hold him up because I had a baby. You know what I mean? It's like,
okay.
Girl, your future wife here, I'm not trying to hold that up. And I got my own issues, And again, that's me probably setting limitations on myself. But in the process, he was a good friend. And it was actually funny because as we were moving through and decided to be more than the friends, he realized I was graduating and he was a year ahead of me. So he was like, wait, you doing exit interviews and stuff? You about to graduate? I'm like, yeah, dude, I can't be in school forever. I got this baby. And I seen the change and shift in him. It was like, oh. Absolutely. So we were like kind of power teaming that together. At the end of the day, it's kind of like, oh, you graduated, me too. I'm about to finish this out now. I got to get it together because if you got a baby and did it, I don't have an excuse, right?
Right. Good.
So yeah. So that's pretty much it. And then I think we both graduated in '99. I think I did spring. He did December, and we were both graduated. We didn't get married for like maybe 2 or 3 years after we graduated.
Okay.
I got pregnant. Before we got married. It was like the year before we got married. We got married a month after my daughter was born.
Okay.
Yep. And that was in 2001. So yep. And that was my buddy. And he and when he graduated, he told me that he wanted to do architecture. I think he wanted to go into architecture or something like that. So he graduates, and of course, you graduate with the bachelor's degree and you really can't find a job, right? That has everybody like, oh, can't find nothing. So he's working for EDS, and I just remember one day, y'all, he came home and he was just like, yeah, I got to go to these schools and get all my transcripts and all this stuff. And I was like, for what? And he's like, I'm about to be a police officer. And I was like, what? Like, oh, no. And I'm telling y'all, it took everything out of me. Like, I literally was like, okay, I'm being punked because there's no way I'm about to be a single mother. I'm pregnant. I was pregnant at the time, and we about to try to get married. And this dude decided he about to be a police officer.
Right.
So and I really had a heart-to-heart with God. I was like, God, I'm not about to marry him. I can't do that. And then it was like almost a spirit came over me, and it was more like, why not? Right? It was like, well, because he could die. Like, of course, I don't want him to get killed. I don't want that. And then what ended up happening was God's words to me. And the energy given to me was he could die doing anything. But if he dies doing that, at least it's something that he really wanted to do. And I let go any stress about him being a police officer from that day forward. So for things the way they did with him being a police officer, I go back to God showing me that's what he wanted to do. It's like absolutely. About being a police officer. That was he loved it. So yeah.
How old were you at this time making these very adult decisions?
20. Ooh, don't quote me. 23 maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, because I was done with Michigan. I think I was like 23.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay. Those are huge. Those are just huge moments, like all the way around. I think about some of the adult experiences that we have in college, and all of us have them, but then there are the extra adult ones where you're just kind of like, wait, what? You're trying to navigate through the early years of your 20s and it's just it's grown folk business. And I'm listening to this and I'm like, wow, you were 23 making these decisions. That's incredible. That's definitely impressive. And we know the backdrop. We know God, did that. That's amazing. So you guys were married for how long? And then you have how many children in total?
So we were married 12 years before he passed. We were married in 2001. He passed in 2013.
Okay.
We had a total of 3 kids together. My oldest son obviously was not with him, and then the other 3. They are, I guess, is now youngest now is 11. I have a 14-year-old, a 20-year-old, and a 25-year-old. So yeah,
Ooh,
yep,
okay.
yep. And at the time Patrick passed, I believe the ages were 5, 3, 5, 3, 12, and I want to say 17.
Mm,
Yep, yep. Right. It's been a long time. And when I say that, it's just like, wow, it's really been that long. But yeah, so I had little people. Yeah, when it
yeah.
really happened. Yep.
Are you prepared to dive a little bit more into that right now?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. So when you got the call, I'm assuming it was a call. When you got the call,
Mhm.
what was your reaction immediately?
So I'm gonna give you a backdrop
Okay.
before the call, right? So the
Okay.
back for the call is we were married 12 years, right? Long marriage, married, just married, dealing with married things, right?
Mhm, mhm.
And having kids. So this was a point in time where we decided to do it different. Patrick was pretty spiritual too, right? So it was like, okay, we did a fast and a prayer. We did the 40-day fast with our church,
Okay.
which is so darn significant because this incident happened in April. You know, Lent season is usually right before April and Easter and all that.
Mhm.
The issue is that we fasted during this time, but our anniversary is Marchish, right? So I know we went to Vegas during our anniversary fasting, right? Because at first it was like, let's just not take a trip because we're fasting. That's just the stupid. We can't drink, we can't gamble. You know, we out of the sorts of the fast or whatever. And my travel agent was like, no, you guys can actually still have a really good time. Just go.
Mm.
I'll make it right. It was the best trip ever. When I tell you, we had a really good time. We made it work. We stuck to the fast. It was a very cheap trip because we didn't buy anything. We weren't
Right.
right. So it was a very good time for connecting and also hearing God, right? And it
Mm.
was a very powerful time for us. So when we come back, I want to say we came back the week before the April 2nd, which is the date he was injured.
Mm.
Uh, our energy was just different. So when I got the call on April 2nd that, hey, something has happened to Patrick, and that was the word, something has happened.
Mm.
And then I must say that probably a half an hour before that call, me and Patrick had just got off the phone with one another because I never really hung out in Detroit. I was living in Belleville at the time, and I never really hung out in Detroit. So this was one particular date that I was going to go visit a good friend. I'm like, hey, I'm about to come visit you. It's after Easter. We're about to hang out.
Mm.
So I went to her house, and before getting there, he calls and just says, hey, I might have to stay to work late. Not sure when I'll be home. We found this bad guy. We think we might be able to get him. He worked on a special task force. So I'm like,
Okay.
cool. So when I get to her house, we were just trying to figure out something to eat. I know Easter has just passed, so she's got Easter food that she's thinking about warming up, and we're talking about food. So when she's in the kitchen, I'm looking at the news, and I never watch the news really, right? But I see officer injured, and anytime I would see,
Mm.
I always just give him a call. So I went to call him when I saw that before the call came, and he never answered. But I was
Mm.
a call from a number that I didn't know at the same time. So when I finally answered that call, that was the call. It was just, hey, Patrick's been injured. Where are you? And I gave
Mm.
her address and told her. Actually, I was asking her, like, where's your address? I was starting to lose it. Like, where's your address? They're saying Patrick been hurt. I'm looking at this thing on the news. It didn't tell any details, but it was just kind of scary. And at that moment though, right? So all of this stuff is happening really fast. And this friend of mine has a friend that's on the force, and he's calling her. It's just a lot going on. He's asking her where I'm at. And it's just weird because we and her don't usually hang out together, right?
Mm.
So in the process, I remember looking up and I said, God, we just did this fast prayer together. You about to take him from me?
Mm.
And it was just like, trust me.
Mm.
The energy I got was trust me. And again, that was a moment where I was like, okay, hands off. God said, trust him. That means maybe his hand, his arm, maybe his finger, he'll be home tomorrow, probably, chasing somebody. He's Superman Patrick. He's going to be okay. So of course that car gets to the house to get me. puts me and my friend in the car, shoots us to the hospital. And at that point, I'm also calling one of my prayer warriors, like, hey, Patrick's been hurt. I'm not sure what's going on, but I just need you to pray. And I kind of left it at that. Got to the hospital. When I saw the magnitude of the police cars and the news and how I realized it was going to be something a little bit bigger than probably what my initial hope was. And then, of course, by the time you get into the hospital, it was at Henry Ford Hospital. By the time you walk in, and you just got people looking at you like they want to see your reaction, I guess, you know. Wow. So I'm walking in, and they don't take me to the room, they take me to the conference room. So I kind of feel a little better, right? Because I am a PA. I did train at Henry Ford, so I knew what the room was, right?
Oh, wow. Okay.
A person is no longer with you room, and then there's the conference room. So I was at least happy they sent me to the conference room, right? So in the process of being in the conference room, the doctors came in, the ER doctors came in and explained what had happened. And still, I didn't know, right? I didn't know nothing. And then it was just like the guy with the resident at that time, he kind of looked at me. He said, hey, he was talking when he got in here. He was good. We intubated him right away, but he kind of broke down and he started crying. And I'm still looking like, well, what happened? He's like, well, he's been shot. And I said, oh, he said, he's been shot in the head a couple of times. So of course I'm a PA. I look up to God, like, what am I supposed to do with that? Like, okay, you told me trust you. And again, trust me. And I got that feeling because it was like, well, the surgeons are going to take him to surgery. So the surgeons are going to take him to surgery. Can you sign the consent? They think that they can, do something to pretty much, save him. And I'm like, okay, God, this really about to be a God Superman moment. This fast and prayer thing worked, right? So at that moment, I mean, they called chaplains and stuff in. Again, I signed the consent. And I think at this point, I probably was a little bit foggy because things were happening so fast, right? This is also a day where I think must have been spring break time because my daughter had just got on a plane to go to California my oldest daughter had just got on a plane to go to California to be with his mom.
Wow.
Right. So during that whole time I'm sitting in that hospital conference room, I'm like, hold up, wait, I got to call her to come right back. Right. So as soon as she touched down in California, I was calling them to come right back. Like Patrick's been hurt. You've got to come back. Kind of how this day kind of manifested. And that pretty much is kind of how the call to, okay, now we're sitting and waiting, what's next kind of thing happened.
So how many days transpired between him being injured to his passing?
That was a 6-month process.
Wow.
With us 6 months. So he was shot April 2nd, 2013. And he passed away in October 2013. Watch, yep. So, and again, a guy. Hindsight is always 2020. My thought process during that was like, nope. I'm going to read scripture with my husband every day. I'm going to be the wife through sickness and in health. And I did. I literally went to the hospital twice a day for 6 months. It was maybe 2 days that I can remember that I didn't go because the girls had something going on and I couldn't make it up there. And I just kind of checked in with the nurses. But it was twofold because it was initially like, okay, well, in the morning, I wanted to go to kind of hear what the doctors were going to do for the day and how he was doing. And then in the evening, it was more my time. I kind of would just go make sure he was tucked in, and then I would definitely journal. And then in the morning time, that would be when I would read scripture. I read the daily bread with him every day, right? And that went along with it every day.
Okay.
When it got towards the end, right, for his end of watch time, I mean, it was a process. He was at Henry Ford. He was transferred to a select specialty, and then ended up going back to Henry Ford. It was kind of the right. And there was a moment where he actually woke up and he was. He could blink to communicate. So there was a time where, I felt like I could have a conversation with him for the most part. And when things started kind of dwindling out, it was actually a point where I was leaving the hospital and I realized, wait, this is Patrick. I'm talking sniper, ATF. He likes to do stuff. He played police softball. He was just a very outgoing person. And he's laying with tubes coming out and got to be flipped and turned. And, I thought about it leaving because at first I was like, oh my God, this is so good. He's waking up, and the reality of it dawned on me. And it was just like, hold up, this isn't good. I didn't feel good leaving, And it was almost at that moment that I realized he was starting to kind of deteriorate a little bit. He was, his brain swelling and different things started happening. So as we progressed and he went back to Henry Ford, it was funny because again, I'm still reading scripture every day. We get towards the the end, we get time. I think it was September. It had to be the end of September. And I had finished the Bible, literally from
Wow.
Revelation, finished the Bible. And when I finished it, I remember thinking like, wow, that's something, right? I ain't never in life thought that that's something I do. But I realized in the moment that I thought first like, oh, this is for Patrick. I said, oh, that was for me, right? It was a total clarity moment, you guys. And when that happened, I said, there's only a few things about to happen. Either he's gonna pass away, he's gonna get better, or he's going to be in this vegetative state, and this is what we're gonna get. Because at that point, he was not waking up, and that's kind of how the process of him going started. And it was interesting because I didn't want to read. It was something on my phone that must have been an app for me doing scriptures or something, and it wouldn't get off of Revelations. And I was like, I'm Revelations again. I'm good on that. That was scary, right? And it probably got into about the third or fourth day. And when I something was like, just reread it. Like you don't have enough to do. It won't, your process can't go. So I started rereading it. And I remember landing on Revelations 2, verse 9 to 11. And it basically was, to me, it was just words from God to me, and I could actually hear it. It was basically like, you about to make some decisions, and you choose me. And it was just like, whoa, it was just very, very clear stuff from just revelation to me to let me be prepared that God is doing a thing. And that was kind of one of my moments. It was just like, okay, hands off, I guess, got to totally trust God, regardless of who is in the room or not in the room. So that's kind of how the trickle down of it really came. It came down at the end that he just pretty much, it was nothing that they could do for him anymore. We were doing more stuff to him than for him. And it didn't sit well with me. So through prayer and scripture and revelation, we pretty much let the
process.
That's the process, of course. Yeah.
Wow. Deodge. I mean, look, I know a lot of people across this world even. And when I hear this story, and I mean, obviously some things were brand new today, even me hearing for the first time, I'm still just always amazed by your strength and your faith, your commitment to faith, because even through that, there's so many people who are believers, who would have, kind of like biblical, kind of the Job's folks who are like, look, curse God and die type mindset. And I'm just blown away, to be honest, and narrative shifts, we're not necessarily like a Christian platform. I am a Christian, yes, and I identify as that, but we have a lot of different viewers here, and it's not just Christian audience. But as a believer, just me hearing you share something like that, and still every time just like hands off, that's so powerful. I mean, Derek said it a moment ago, it's so incredibly powerful that you were able to be sustained under that. So there are a couple of things that I jotted down here. What kind of support did you have throughout? So you said this was a 6-month process. So what I know is that typically when something like this occurs, you get a lot of front end support.
And then it goes away, right?
Right. And so I'm curious to know, kind of, near the tail end or halfway through, what type of support did you have? The physical presence support? Were you in counseling? Like, what kinds of things were you doing at that point?
So the funniest thing is, I did not have a personal. I had people that were counselors counseling me, but I wasn't in counseling. If that makes sense, right?
Absolutely.
I did have people that would check on me regularly. Hey, how are you doing? Self-care days. Let me take you to lunch. Let's go get a massage. Absolutely.
Good.
That process. Absolutely. And again, through God's strength, right? Because I look back at it and realize I was in a complete fog. Like, not that I wasn't in a reality. I knew what was happening. I'm a physicist and I understand medicine. I understood everything that was happening to him. I wasn't in the dark. But the biggest thing is when you are forced in situations like that, it not only shows you who God sends you, I should say, because a lot of times what happens is I think that the support that you think that you should have, right? You don't necessarily get that support from. people, right? So it'll be other people providing you the support that you should be getting from someone else. So, and I say that to say my prayer during that time frame was just, God, protect my kids and me. Put your fence up. So a lot of people that weren't coming around, I think I took it as, I got offended at first until my pastor had even did a sermon on, be careful, because what you know, that thing you ask for protection from, God keeping them from you, because that's just not something that you need to deal with right now. So support that I did not get from certain people was technically God protecting me anyway. But initially, yes. So initially the police support was just, it was almost overwhelming, because they didn't have a peer support group, or they didn't have an injured officers committee. And this is something that I actually helped to orchestrate the year after Patrick passed, because of what I had gone through with him, right? My biggest thing is, and Chief Craig was great. I went to him and I said, hey, the issue now to me is we don't have any support as survivors. And it was twofold, because it wasn't just that, it's not that they didn't support us, because don't get me wrong, there were people that would give me cards all day long. Here's my card if you need me. But it wasn't organized enough, right? It wasn't organized to where you'd had, I got this peer support person that works for the Detroit Police Department. I need help with blah, 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 right? So it turned into that the year after. I didn't have that, but I had a ton of people, and nobody ever told me no if I needed anything. And I'm your most humble girl. I wasn't asking for nothing. If I asked for something, I mean, I really needed you, right? So as far as you giving me a ride somewhere, absolutely not. I can get in my car and drive. But hey, I'm having trouble with something in my house. Can you come look at it? Absolutely. Someone would be there. Someone would actually come help. I think they put up my kids' playscape or something. I mean, they did. And there were fundraisers, right? They did tons of fundraisers that raised a lot of funding. And all of those things probably in my mind let me know that, hey, people give money for good causes. That's where the nonprofit thing came from. Anyone ever started a nonprofit before Patrick. That's where that came from. So initially, yes, very strong support. In the middle, it kind of dwindled. Then he passed away. Support came back again, right? So it's the same thing. Everybody kind of came around again, and then everybody's lives went on. But within that, so counseling support was more so friends and family. And then I had a counselor or two that I knew that I would get counseled with, right? But during that process, God was always my strength, right? So I already knew God first, and I never stopped taking care of me. What is that? I always made sure that I was exercising. I might not have ate the best, but I always stayed in the gym. I always took care of me. And then I trickled that to make sure my kids are okay, right? So God first, me, and everything else is kind of how my mindset was. So that is that I adopted early. But after passing, it turned into, okay, I see everybody's lives is going on, but this dude did a huge thing for his community. Like, he totally sacrificed his life for the community. I don't forget. And that's where P-Hill stemmed from. I didn't start P-Hill right away. P-Hill didn't officially get started until 2015, because I was told by a lot of the other widows that I had gotten to meet that you want to wait at least a year or two before you do anything major after a loss like that, you know, because sometimes you're just making decisions and spending money and doing stuff that, you know, you go back and look at it like, I probably shouldn't have did that, right? So I did. I waited 2 years, and it was actually my Go Blue life. It was actually a homecoming. So I have to share with you guys that there was a moment at Michigan where I was done. I was done. I was spent. I was a single mom. I think Patrick was actually still my friend at this time. And my biggest issue, you guys, is that it was some things that happened with income tax, and my mom had double claimed me or something crazy from like high school. And I'm a grown lady with a baby,
right?
And gonna pay my bills when my income tax check come. I'm gonna be okay. I owe the school a little money, but I'll be okay. You know, kind of the spending money before you have it life that you do as a college student, right? And they took my entire income tax check, y'all. And I said, oh my gosh, I owe this school money, right? I owe the school so much money, and I have no way of ever coming up with it without my income tax check. And then on top of that, it was like, okay, I don't even have a leg to stand on. I didn't know what to do, right? What ended up happening was I asked my mom, could I come back home? I was like, just let me come home. Let me pay the school money down. I'll get me a little job and I'll figure it out, right? So that was going to be my key. And my mom told me no.
Oh, what?
For the baby. She did. She told me no. Hindsight is 2020. That was the best thing she could have ever did for me. Because I'm telling you, if I would have went home, I probably would have prolonged this college thing and never really dealt with it. I had to hustle up. And I remembered I had a couple of friends that had kids, and we had our own little group at Michigan. And the one girl, she knew every single scholarship, woman, something that you could go to and get some money. And I'm crying and bawling, you know. And my other friend she comes to visit me, and I think I'm on the floor crying, like I have no idea what I'm about to do. And I'm looking at my, and of course, Patrick, he didn't have no money or nothing. He's a college student, so he just looking at what to do for it. I don't know what we're gonna do, right? But I called the Center of Education of Women. And what I ended up doing is going in there. I just remember going in there so humbled. And all I could think was the worst they could tell me is no. But when I left there with enough check money to pay what I owed the school, I said no. And my when I say pinpoint focus was on graduating, you couldn't tell me nothing after that. So I say that to say when I went to homecoming, I want to say it was 2015's homecoming. I don't know if something major was happening. Were they doing a cook-offs or something that year?
That was the really special one. Yeah, I was there for that
homecoming challenge.
It was a big homecoming, right?
It was. Yep.
Huge.
I was good, right? At this point, still miss my husband or whatever, but life is going, right? And I'm enjoying the fact that, oh my God, I graduated from the school. I'm an African American woman. I was a single mother. Oh my God, I'm back here. But something settled with me that my time here at Michigan was not the happiest. I was sad there. My mindset was always, I'm going to pay for this. How I'm going to do that. And I felt that. And I had to remember, I couldn't even remember Education of Women, y'all. I forgot about it, right? And it was almost like I was tapped on the shoulder, like, that organization helped you. You got to give back to that organization.
Wow.
So in that moment, I immediately was like, oh my gosh, I can start this, whatever. If I start me a nonprofit, I'm going to make sure I give to some single moms because that's so help me or whatever. So that started something else. And I don't know if I shared that with you. So I do have an endowed scholarship at the Center of Education.
Wow.
Right. It started. It's not totally mature. I'm still working on that. But it was something that started, it sparked that. Initially, when I went to offer help and just asked how I could give scholarships, they told me that I couldn't. They told me that I couldn't give because I couldn't give to minority women, or I couldn't discriminate or something with the scholarship, right? Because I think with affirmative action, all this other stuff. So I left it alone, and I went ahead and started Ph1LL and came back to it when the leadership had changed. And it was like, oh, absolutely. But basically what you do is you just designate your scholarship and you designate who you would like it to go to. We try to stay within the ramifications, but you have to know that if we don't have anybody that fits that, we can give it to, and I said, absolutely, I'll do that. So I do have so that's where Ph1LL sparked from, because it was like, I remembered where, oh my God, I was a single mother. That was so hard for me, but still, I didn't know what Ph1LL was going to be. At that moment, Ph1LL was more, I got to help somebody at Cass Tech because that's where Patrick graduated from. I got to help a single mother from Cass. I got to help. I had all these different ideas that were in the air. I'm going to help all these people. I had no true mission statement, right?
Got you.
That with a vision coach, and she helped me with Ph1LL. She helped me actually guide what Ph1LL was going to be, and that's where I really got it started. And then our first fundraiser was a 5K. So yeah, that's kind of how that started. Why a 5K, y'all? I didn't even run 5Ks. I have no that on my heart. It was just like, do a 5K. It was like, I don't even run. I don't even know what to do. But again, so that's been our annual. So we always have a fundraiser in April. And I will do that. So next year will be the actual anniversary to Patrick's death. It's actually on April 2nd. So it's usually the first Saturday of April, because I thought that would be pretty consistent for people to kind of mark it off their calendars. Actually is marked April 2nd. So it's going to be kind of a significant date. So make sure y'all mark your calendars and make sure y'all go to, can't go, just donate, right? I've helped a lot of single moms at this point. It's random. I get a lot of people that'll kind of call and just kind of need help. With Ph1LL, it's twofold too. Ph1LL actually gives scholarships to single parents. It's not just mothers. I do give, if it's men that would apply, absolutely. I just haven't had any men really apply, but I definitely give it to a male who's in school full time and having a hard time. But there's twofold. So because I needed emergency funding. I have an emergency funding piece to mine. If you if within a 12-month period and you need within $1,000, we can give you that. Your max will be $1,000. And then in the fall, which is right now, we have a scholarship open to a parent who's looking for funding. And it doesn't have to be for anything. If you need emergency funding, you do have to be enrolled full time. And if you're not enrolled full time, I like to have a conversation with you because I can get you there so that we can get finished and get these degrees.
Yes.
Right. And then it's basically if it's I've paid daycare bills, gotten cars fixed, but I usually just send the money directly to the source because I've been there with, if you would have gave me that money when I was in college, I probably would have got my hair done or something because I hadn't had no money in a while. Right. That's just me being irresponsible, but I want to make sure that these girls and guys succeed. So my goal, I pay the entity, I paid rent. I've paid daycare bills. I've helped out a lot of little entities and I have a board. So usually we kind of run the applications through the board. If the money goes out and I make sure they get their entities paid. In the fall, we kind of just see how much we've collected over the year and we kind of dish it out. So usually by the end of August, we'll know who we're giving it to. And I send that money directly to the school.
Okay.
So have some bills that need to be paid, they can be covered. But also if you're kind of paid up, if it goes to the school, they'll just give the check back to the student.
Gotcha.
So designate that I don't want it to go towards the loans. I don't want loans paid with them. So I do designate that when they get it. And that's been pretty helpful. But
that is awesome, man. Like just I'm listening and I'm like, man, this is great. So the Ph1LL organization, guys, you see it running across the little ticker there. So check it out, please, and share for anybody that you might know that might be in that same circumstance or a similar one. So Deodge, one of the things I heard you say was that you never stopped taking care of you. It was God, then you, and then everything else. And so, Shanta, are you still there? I was just about to throw this question at you. I don't know what just happened to her.
I think she had to leave for a second.
Oh, did she? Okay, let me look.
She said, give her 30 seconds.
Oh, she sure did. Okay. Sorry, guys. All right. So I'm going to ask her a question in a moment. But that never stopping to take care of you. What I notice a lot with individuals who are really going through something like this, so some really deep grieving or some just loss in general that's stacked upon each other maybe, or other responsibilities, and just trying to figure out how to make this work. What happens often is the self-care element often is the first thing to go. And so I guess, for me, I'm just, again, blown away by the fact that you had it set up in a way where you're like, nope, it's God, then it's me, then everything else. And so did it take you a minute to get there, or was that you just knew?
It never took to get there. And I would attest it to the fasting and praying right before I started through what I was going through. Because at that point, God was my center. It was a point where one of my therapists told me, it was like the words always resonate. It was like, what is your center? Right. And it was work, it was husband, it was kids. I'm telling you, and if Patrick came back, y'all, he would not know who I am. I'm not a person at all, right? But I'm telling you, when I realized that God was my center, it changed my work completely. It completely changed it, which means nope, God is going to guide everything I needed. And if I know that everything rotates around this piece of the universe, then I know I'm. But if I'm putting it at a job where they can fire me or they don't like me, right, that can dwindle out. So that's not even stable. Or if I put it on some money that somebody give me or an income tax check, if I don't get the check, then what? I don't have a center no more. Like I don't have. So I needed something that was so solid and so strong that if, from birth to death to beyond, I needed something solid to hold on to. And that's where that came from. So that led me to working out and exercising, because that's where I kind of got that's where I kind of got it together. And my diet did not start being the best because I didn't really understand diet. As being a physician assistant and all that, I never really dove into understanding diet. I knew what was good for you. I knew what was bad for you. I didn't really, realize how often I should be eating and all of that. But, if I worked out, I could get some ice cream if I wanted it. Totally didn't understand the process, right?
Okay.
Through actually being introduced to like my A-Train family, like that's a boot camp family that I got acquainted with. I was also doing Zumba at some point. being acquainted with all these different people who had like minds of exercise and, you know, diet, or look at this challenge we're doing. We're drinking this water. Things like that started opening my mind up to, ooh, I might not be doing the diet thing right, you know. And then once I adopted diet, exercise, and then another thing that I always did, because the boot camp was actually it's kind of brutal. And because it's so brutal, I started getting massages monthly, but it was also time for me to release and relax. So I didn't play around with the self-care part. I had to know, I had to be selfless enough to know what to be selfish about. And
Say that again.
Yeah, selfless enough to know what to be selfish about. Absolutely.
Man, can I push back? I want to push back on you just a little bit, Deodge.
Yep.
Because self-care is my thing. That's my jam. So I say self-care is not selfish. And when you said that was where you began to focus on your self-care, like my heart smiled and jumped and did cartwheels and all this good stuff, right? Because I think altogether too often we feel like we have to make someone else the spotlight. And yes, your husband is in this critical situation, but you are still here. And I tell people all the time, if you don't take care of you, who's going to take care of the people that you say you love and care for and want to be here for? So if you let your body fall apart by not, because my pillars of self-care, routine maintenance, sleep, exercise, hydration, and diet. You said it, right?
Absolutely.
You don't take care of those things, you're running your body down. So how would you have been able to help Patrick had the tide turn? You know what I'm saying? How would you have been modeling for your kids what it looks like to be preparing yourself to care for someone if you've run yourself down in the process?
Absolutely.
So
absolutely. Yep. See, I love it.
That is great. These 5 pillars, Shanta: sleep, exercise, hydration. What's the 4th one?
Sleep, exercise, hydration, and diet.
Diet.
Because like I liken it to, like I said, routine maintenance on a car. You're gonna put proper fuel in your car, right? Because you know if you put 87 in that premium, like you're gonna have some problems, right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? If you run your engine all the time, you're gonna run some stuff down. It's gonna be like, well, you know what I'm saying? If you don't put oil in it, if you don't hydrate, we have more issues. So we're recognizing that the systems all work together, but why is it that we can relate to it if we're talking about a car or a computer? Because you put your computer to sleep, right?
Oh, do y'all hear this? Y'all hear this?
You reset your computers, right? You know, you let them rest. You do checkups on them.
Absolutely.
So why don't we prioritize our own health and make sure we're giving our bodies what we need?
Absolutely.
And if I were to include a fifth, that would, because part of my weekly goals is prayer and meditation, right? And I heard you went to the hospital every day, twice a day, right? But that time, I was like, that was her quiet time. And it's in that quiet time when you hear the voice of God talking to you, right? But so often we are running, trying to do other things that we don't give ourselves space to hear that voice, right? And yes, there are letters behind my name, but yes, you can have Jesus and a therapist.
That's right. Come
on.
Or
you can have the Buddha and a therapist. You know what I'm saying? Faith and science are not separate. They go together.
Say that again, please.
They go together.
Yeah, faith and
like
science.
A hand in glove. Just saying. But we can't say like, I'm gonna just pray this away. That is not what you did. You trusted, but you also listened to the science. You also read the room. You saw the situation. You said, this is a man who did this, that, and the third. Is this the life? And that's a thing that we sometimes run into when we have a loved one who is experiencing an illness. We don't want to say it, but that's the selfish part. We're holding on, but is that the life they would hold on to?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So we need to put ourselves in a place where we can be still and hear and get clarity.
And then another thing too, still, Shanta, is being still don't mean doing absolutely nothing.
Right.
Sometimes people think, "Oh, I'm being still." Well, you can still exercise being
exactly. Running is stillness. People hear when they're running.
You can still eat healthy being still, or you don't have to make any major decision about what you're praying about being still, but you can still move through it. And another thing is like the I Am With You, which is the nonprofit for domestic violence. It's the key. I am, of course, God is with you, meaning that He moves with you. He ain't moving for you. So
Right.
move, He gonna go with you. Meaning
Yeah.
you leading the way because you got choices to make.
Exactly.
Stuff from happening. Some stuff is gonna happen, but He wants you to know I'm with you. But you got to make the decisions. A lot of times, well, I'm gonna sit here and be still until God don't put no food. The police put healthy food on the table.
It's not
No,
the way that works.
right?
Without works.
Right. I'm gonna be still until the gym just tell me to go to it. I'm gonna want to go to the gym. No, you got to move, and He'll go with you, right?
Yeah.
So I totally agree with you.
This is good. This is a great conversation, guys. I really appreciate it. A couple of things. So this is a two-parter for our viewing audience. We're doing a two-part. And so we're coming kind of up on the close of this one. But there are a couple of questions that I have. So you mentioned that when Patrick passed on, that you had a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 12-year-old, and a 17-year-old. First of all, that's a lot going on. And I mean, I'm just thinking, of course, my experience is teaching middle schoolers. So you had that 12-year-old in there, you've got a teenager, toddlers, my goodness. I'm curious to know, in terms of you sharing with them, like, what did the conversation look like, letting them know what happened with their father? Now, obviously, there had been some days, I'm guessing that you kind of maybe had some preparation and some talks and these kinds of things over that period of time. But what did that look like, and how did you? I guess how did they respond as children? This is a huge parenting moment.
It's huge, and it's huge for me to even dive into it. Talking about 7 years later, right? Because the initial thing was, oh my gosh, how am I going to tell them that he's been shot, right? That he coming out of everywhere, head's all wrapped up and he's swollen and it's images everywhere, right? How do I do that? They actually, the department that he worked for, the ATF department, governmental level, brought me in a social worker that came and sat with me to tell me how to actually sit down and tell them, which was very helpful. And that lady in particular is available to my 12-year-old daughter, and she was able to meet with her a few times throughout the 6-month time frame that Patrick was in the hospital. So that was extremely awesome. But the biggest thing that she told me, and it stood out to me, was be honest. Be honest. Just tell them. She said, and prepare, right? So I was more so concerned about my 5-year-old, which is Cameron, because it was just her attunement with Patrick was a little different, right? Because she kind of was still in a fairy tale age, but a reality age, right? So I just kind of, and they told me to give it to her lightly, but let her pry the questions. So I just remember my conversation with her in particular was just, Daddy's been hurt. That, she said, did the bad guy hurt him? And I probably say, he's been hurt. She was like, she said, what, did he get shot? And I told her, yeah. She said, well, where did he get shot at? I said, well, he got shot in the head. Like, I got it. She got it. And she just looked at me and she said, well, at least he's still alive. I said, yeah, he's still alive. And then I just, before we went to the hospital, I had to explain to her that there were going to be tubes. And there's tubes here, there's a machine making noise. They may ding, but nothing wrong, just so surprised. And then at that time, because it was so early in the process, it was a police shooting. He had guards outside his door. So it was intense. So when she went in, she was good. You know what I mean? She was already prepared for what I had told her. PJ, I don't even remember how that conversation went because he was so little.
Okay.
And I think I pretty much told the same thing to Lauren. Donovan had already seen him the night of. He was old enough that he had been up there and already seen him. So I don't even think I had told him. I think my good friend had actually told him. but it was more so the being honest. And then the other thing that they told me was don't hesitate crying in front of them. Like it's sad cry.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel really bad because this happened at, we're part of a organization called Concerns of Police Survivors. And this is an organization that is they help survivors who have lost a line of duty. So my kids attend camp every year. They have good friends that are their age that have also lost a dad in the line, like that. One thing that we had went to the camp a few weeks ago, and my one daughter, she was like, my mom is so strong, she never cries. And I was like, I said, I do cry. I said, but it's just something that happens. And I think it's my defense mechanism again. I think that I kind of separate out. And it's not that I don't want to cry. My body does not allow me to. I'll be crying on the inside. I just don't physically do it. And I think that's something that actually hurt me when it came to my domestic violence situation. I did not cry. I didn't cry in the cry. I didn't cry. So, the jury didn't believe me, but I don't have that spirit. I don't have a crying spirit. Now, don't get me wrong. I do cry. Is it in front of the kids? Very rarely, because usually when I'm with the kids, I'm on work mode. I'm trying to get them sad or whatever. Right. So usually I have my moments by myself, but that was something they told me, don't hesitate to cry from them. They need to see that you have emotion.
So
go ahead, Shanta.
So I love that social worker because that's what I tell parents just in general when talking to them about how to communicate with their kids. Like I do a talk. Who do you think you're talking to? Because a lot of people struggle with communicating with their kids, but being honest is the number one important thing. And especially with small children, let them guide, but just be honest about it. And when we say, let them see you cry, that is because all too often we do not show vulnerability. And it is seen as a weakness as opposed to a strength. Because what vulnerability is allowing yourself to be open in front of someone, to lay yourself bare and to say, this is who I am. This is what is going on with me right now. I need, and it might just be, I need you to recognize this humanity in me right now. But you say you don't cry in front of them, but you do cry. And I have had to sit with my own children personally and express to them, mommy does cry. I do. I'm letting you know that I do. You don't always see it. Right?
Absolutely.
I feel like
it's okay.
They do need to know it's okay. And I feel like so often, because we do rock this Black girl magic, we rock this strength. Oftentimes we are single parents. People see that and they, the capes that we rock are great. But sometimes it's like, look, this cape is in the dry cleaners right now. Like it's over here. And I think we get so used to just kind of owning that space, right? That others don't think that we do cry, right? Others don't think that or believe that we have capacity to, or we maybe don't feel as deeply as others because we're so used to having that title, right? That invisible title that's on us. One of the things that I often say, nobody take this because I'm putting it on one of my shirts, but one of the things that I always say is vulnerability is my superpower. Vulnerability is my superpower. It's important for us to be transparent. It's important for us to open up. And I didn't always feel that way. I learned that within the last decade, when I had compounded loss and went through my own, grieving and all this kind of stuff. And for me, it was in the beginning, I didn't want to open up and share anything about anything with anyone after I had experienced the losses of, the ones I did at the time. And someone challenged me on that. It was a spiritual mentor that I had. It was like, hey, look, you got to open up. You have to be vulnerable. Your healing is going to come in that way. And so for the viewing audience, sometimes we're so used to just holding things in that we're not sharing, but we have to keep in mind that every time that we share, there's a few things that happen. Every time that we share, someone else is impacted, right? So they're going to gain strength from what you're sharing. The other thing, though, I've learned is that as I share, I continue to heal. And so when I'm not maybe used to saying it out loud out of my mouth, right? When I'm dealing with, still the grief and loss, recently my brother, right? Back in April, I don't talk about it a whole lot, but when I do, I recognize like, you know what? Like I'm getting better at talking about it. I'm getting stronger. I'm able to have a conversation about it, and these types of things translate to people, so that they're being encouraged and they're being motivated. And really, at the end of the day, that's what it's about. We're here for each other.
Totally.
Right?
When we are letting out, right, these emotions, we are beginning the healing process because we're letting out what is hurting us.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about how stress impacts our bodies and stress causes illness. But all you're doing is just stuffing it down, Ricky Bobby in it, never to be brought up again. But it's going to come up, and it's going to come up in a real ugly way.
Yeah.
We have to be able to let these things out so we can heal ourselves.
That's good. To that point, and we'll wrap with this for the night, and then we'll pick this back up in our next conversation. But to that point, Shanta, because one of the things I wrote down when you said that you don't cry, like your body doesn't really have the ability to cry. I'm curious to know, did you notice crying other ways? So I'll tell you what a therapist told me once years ago, because like you, I've had trouble crying. It's like, I feel like I need to, but I can't. And it's not coming out even currently. Okay. That's a thing that's been a thing. And so what I've found is that in my experience with this, it manifests in my body like no joke. So I've had autoimmune issues, like all kinds of just physical expressions. And I remember a therapist telling me like, your body is crying because it has to get out. Right. And I was like, wow, okay, that makes sense. Because every time I go to the doctor, all the things are like, oh, no, you're fine. We don't see anything. And they do all the blood work, all the things. Right. And eventually it was like, no, this is a little more somatic than you think. Right. So I'm curious to know, in your experience, did you feel a different way of, I guess, the crying coming out? Did you have any pain? Did you have any issues with just your physical, like physiology, anything expressing differently during this loss process or grieving process?
So actually, it was Deodge that said she can't cry, because I do cry now, but the process that it took for me to get to a place to cry was me breaking down in my therapist's office. But my body has shown me, yes, you should have let some stuff out a long time ago, because like you, I also have an autoimmune challenge. And I held on to things way long. I couldn't understand what was going on with my body. But I had held on to so much for so long. It was just like, you know what, girl? I tell people all the time, if you don't give the body what it needs, it will take it.
So let me correct it. It's not that I don't cry. I cry on the demand of somebody.
Okay.
I cry. It's not going to be like, oh my God, somebody was hit by a car and I'm just about to cry. Usually, what do I need? What do I need to get out of this moment, God? Who's supposed to help me? Who am I supposed to help? That's usually my initial reaction to something. And then as far as like a hurt feeling, I cry. I do.
Okay.
And it might be in the shower. It hits me it might be when I'm listening to a song, driving, and I do. But I don't do it on demand. You know what I mean? For some odd reason, my moments aren't always in front of my kids. And the majority of them are not in front of my kids. I share with them. I share with them all the time. You don't have to live up to a mommy standard. And I do cry and feel that you can't be sad and upset. My kids have therapy. So yes, I don't play around when it comes to stuff like that. So I'm not a superwoman girl who just don't cry. And no. I do. I just don't do it on demand.
I got you.
When someone's expecting to see a tear from me, you probably are not going to see it, because it's just not coming in that moment.
I got you.
Does it come out? So a way that I deal with grief and stress, though, is through my exercise and working out. That it motivates me. It motivates me to go to the grocery store and figure out a meal plan that's going to be healthy and fit into my kick, and chopping up vegetables and doing stuff on my own. Those things help me. That's my outlet time. So yes, I will go hard in the paint. I'll go running. I'll get on my Peloton and do an exercise bike ride. I will, do my boot camp in the morning. Those are things that I'm just like,
yeah.
But
and
hear what else I hear? That's something you can control.
Say it again, Shanti.
That's something she can control.
Mm-hmm.
So going back to, that little girl going to school, I can control these outcomes because I know I'm gonna control the work that I put into it.
That's good.
Absolutely. I share that in my groups though, and I share it with vulnerability though. It's not that I am a control freak. It's just that it's so many things around me that's happening that I can't control.
Exactly.
And I'm not being shook up about it. Why? Because I'll just control the things I can't. Leave God to handle the things that I can't. So that's kind of how I roll. But yeah, definitely, it's something that I can control.
That's
and
good.
It's not a bad thing, like you said, control freak. And it wasn't that I was pointing it out to say, because that is one of the most empowering things to say, okay, I know I can do this. Right. And it's like, okay, you got a lot going on. You got 4 kids, you got to practice, you got
all the things.
There's a lot of moving pieces over there. But this Peloton ain't going nowhere unless I get on.
That's right. That is, and that's so empowering, right? And it's also empowering, because I was a lot larger, to actually see the weight fall off, to see my blood pressure come down, the fact that I don't need to take all these meds, I'm not going to stroke. I mean, and don't get me wrong, you can still have health problems, but for the most part, the things that I can control, done that, you know what I mean? And then not only just for me, I like to show other people it's possible. I'm telling you by example. So my motto with my patients, and it goes along with your 4 pillars, is health. Be healthy. And health for me is mind, body, spirit, and space, right? And if all those things are working and all those things are good, we're good and we're healthy. But if it's something off in one of those areas, we're not healthy and we got to work right? So a big thing. And then everyone always asks me, what do you mean by space? Well, if your space is cluttered, so is your health. That can be with things or people, right? So if people are cluttering your space, then they're not feeding into you being better. Space ain't clear, it's cluttered, and you're not being healthy. And if you got stuff that you need to clean up and clean out, you can't clean stuff out so that you're not cluttered.
That's good.
Yep.
So the last thing I was going to just, I guess, summarize, but you kind of just did it. I'm just going to put this stamp here. Is just, audience, guys, we have to find that which we have control over, the thing that we can control. When any obstacles or any opposition comes our way, what can we control in the circumstance? Sometimes I think things get so blurry, right? We get these blurred lines that sometimes, what's the word? Emerge. That's the word I'm going for. We get these blurred lines that emerge, and sometimes we just don't have this clarity of focus. But take a step back. If you're a believer, if you're somebody who has a higher being that you pray to, then take the time that you need to do that and be reflective. But then just look at what you can control in the situation, and I think, Deodge said it great. Shanta added to it. I don't need to say much more beyond that. And I love this idea of mind, body, spirit, and space. And so that's all I've got tonight. I'm not going to keep you beyond, and we are going to pick this conversation back up, guys. So please know that. It looks like I have a comment. Let me just double check here. Okay. I've got somebody, a YouTube, there was a YouTuber that says, hi, what causes personality disorders? And then he said like a narcissist. So Adam, I see your comment here. Is there a specific question? Because we're getting ready to wrap here, but I want to acknowledge the fact that you had a question, and I thank you for tuning in. But is there a specific question beyond what causes personality disorders? It's kind of hard to answer that at the close of this topic particularly. Is there a specific thing that ties to what we've spoken about tonight that you're questioning in terms of this narcissistic behavior, perhaps? If you could put that, if you can make a comment about that, we can address that before we wrap up. And we'll kind of wait on you to do that a little bit here, just a couple more minutes. And if I don't see anything come in, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. But so we're waiting on Adam. Ooh, okay. So he said, my main question is, does trauma cause domestic abusers. Okay, he said he just tuned in right at the last minute. No worries, Adam. So here's the thing, it's gonna still be on YouTube, so you can go back and look at this. Okay, so just check out the narrative shifts page, and this particular episode, Adam, this is part 1 of part 2. So if you want to click on YouTube and do the notifications, you'll see when the part 2 airs. And we are going to dive definitely into the domestic abuse and that subject matter in the next episode. So this one, we primarily focused on the death of Deodge's husband, the Ph1LL Foundation, which I'll put the ticker up again, so you missed that a little bit. But she has a really powerful story. And so the fact that you just chimed in, I really want you to get the nuggets of what she got. It's very inspiring. And again, I just appreciate you tuning in, Adam, for sure. But the second part, we're actually going to deep dive into the domestic abuse aspects of that. So just stay tuned and, look for the notifications for that. We are doing this every Monday, okay, at 7 p.m. So Deodge will be back with us. You're welcome. Thank you. And if you need to hit me like in a comment, that's fine. And I'll personally look at that a little bit later. Okay. And respond and get you some more information there. So thank you, Adam, for that. Everybody who joined us tonight, thank you so much. There was a lot of engagement. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Hopefully you were inspired tonight. Encouraged. Even anytime I'm talking to Deodge and we talk, a little bit offline as well, I'm always encouraged. I'm blessed to have the communication. We knew each other. It's crazy because we knew each other as kids in a different context. Our paths crossed when we were young, and then we barely saw. I think I saw you maybe twice on campus, right, when we were at U of M. We did not go to high school together. We did not go to middle school together or elementary, but our paths crossed young because we were part of an organization in Inkster. And so to be kind of full circle here, and there's just other ways in which God has been connecting us. It's been incredible. And so I'm just thankful for the connection. Shanta, you homegirl from back in the day. So just love what God is doing in her life as well, your life. So thank you guys. I appreciate the transparency. I appreciate this conversation, guys. Like seriously, like you guys rock. So I appreciate you so much. Thank you.
It was a pleasure being here.
Thank you for having me again.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Stay on for just a few more seconds. I'm going to go ahead and end the broadcast. Guys, catch us next week, 7:00 p.m. Okay. Same time, same place, same platforms, all the things. We'll see you next time. Have a good night. Go watch LeVar Burton on Jeopardy. Okay. Because it's his week to be on there. All right. You guys take care. Thank you, everybody.
Yay.